What's up, everyone, and welcome to the GMO Show. Today, we're going to be talking about racial prejudice.
Well, Alex, I think it would be a good idea to start off by telling our audience exactly what is racial prejudice.
Well, racial prejudice is racism, is discrimination and prejudice towards people based on their race or ethnicity, as quoted by Wikipedia. And it's important to tell the audience here, Leo, that racial prejudice doesn't just go both ways, it goes all ways. So
you're right, yeah. Actually, I have a story ready right now.
Interesting.
It's really recent, actually, April 24th of 2017, this year. And it's about a man named Ali Mohammed who killed 4 white men solely because they were white.
Wow, that is definitely racial prejudice. So I think, just talking about that, we don't really know the backstory. So the backstory is basically Muhammad was in prison a lot, 1997, 2004, for killing other white people. A lot of pain and frustration. Basically, I think the reason he's been doing this is because he's feeling that we need to defend our interests. People are racist to black. That doesn't mean that we can be racist to them. I mean, obviously, it's not a good idea. Obviously, there shouldn't be any racism. But he's telling us that there is the idea of racism goes both ways. He's defending the interests. It says here, someone has to fight for them. Someone has to fight for all the people who died at the hands of white racist men.
Well, don't you think what the 34-year-old is doing is just adding more fuel to the flame?
I mean, yes, I'm not going to defend his interest of killing people. I think that's completely wrong. But it is true that he is adding fuel to the flame. It's making people reactive because obviously in our world, white people give more power, so there's going to be more consequences to them, which is going to add more fire. But I do think, no, it's a bad idea. But I mean, he is protecting a lot of pain and frustration. It's part of an ongoing war, he said.
Right. Well, he says someone has to fight for them. I mean, the people who are getting oppressed by, I guess, the white man.
Yeah.
White
racism.
White racism. Well, yeah, of course, racism.
Yeah.
And the people who died because of white racist men. And
yeah.
I think
that's what's behind the whole story. He's defending people who have died at the hands of white racist men. He's saying this has to stop. People are not just going to continue being racist to us. We have to stand up for ourselves. I think that's what he's doing. I think he's doing it the wrong way. I think there are ways to do it in today's society. In 2017, there are better ways to support our ideas, to defend what we believe in and what kind of change we want to see in the world. Is a much better way of doing that than responding with violence and killing people. So I think one thing that we should do here before we end this podcast, and what does this have to do with To Kill a Mockingbird? Obviously, we've been reading the book. It's what brought the idea of making this podcast. What's the reference that links these two stories together?
Well, there's so much racism in the book To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it isn't 2017. You know, it's a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And it's in a little country town, so of course.
Southern town as well.
Southern town, yeah. Well,
we all know that Southern town. It's much more extreme. The Civil War, South versus North, the racism versus the non-racists. I think, obviously, during the book at some point it says, I wouldn't have the heart to put a white man in a prison full of Negroes. That's a point of racism. And obviously the story is full of racism. So I guess in that frame of mind, there's definitely a link between those two stories. And that there are better ways to solve problems than insulting people. There's better ways to solve those problems.
Right. Well, yeah, so there's a clear separation in To Kill a Mockingbird between white and blacks. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
But it was common back then, you know?
Yeah. So I think after the reference to Kill a Mockingbird, we have to know what's going on in today's society. And I picked up actually another story about Donald Sterling, which was, I think, he's either a CEO or a manager of a basketball team. And he was caught texting his girlfriend saying, I don't want you hanging out with one of our black basketball players. And so he was fired from his job. And I think it's a good thing that happened. You know, racism in professional sports and life in general in the 21st century shouldn't be accepted. And for him to be fired, it shows that racial prejudice still exists in professional and personal matters.
You mean that he got fired is a good thing?
Yes.
All right.
Because he was being racist towards, he's telling his wife, I don't want you to go out for supper or hang out with any of the black players on our team. That's racial prejudice.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Completely.
So I think that wraps it up, Leo.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to the audience here for listening to us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time for another episode of the GMO Show.
See you next time.